Hmm. Good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Yeah.
Um, if you see my face, it's because inevitably LinkedIn is mad at me for this one. So go live. It's not going live. So there we go.
We
Um,
are live.
Next series, we're going to fix this StreamYard LinkedIn conversation and
Yes.
it'll be easier. But nice to see you, friend. It's a different shade of color over there, which means you're not sparkly.
No, we actually had some rain last night and it's gray and overcast. And so, yes, I don't have
Oh,
any sparklies. I had to turn on my overhead light. So my light is not as lovely as it normally is, but
well, I'm
hey,
having to
I'll take
close my blinds because the light is getting too much. So it's the end of the and so mine
it.
is
It
kind of
changes.
orangey too. Yeah.
Yeah, it changes
Weird.
as we go through the seasons, which is
Yeah.
lovely. As I have gotten older, I've learned to really embrace that there are seasons. I grew up in Southern California. We don't really have seasons. We have hot, hotter, less hot, you know. And then, of course, when I lived in the Midwest, we did have seasons, which was really nice, except I'm not a big fan of snow. So that part wasn't so great.
Mm,
And the gray, not ever seeing the sun was really hard. But I think just for us as humans and as authors, that is one thing I've realized is we cannot do it all the time, right? There's
no, you
always going to
can't.
be things you could be doing. There's never like you never get to the end of the list and go, oh, I've done everything I need to do. There's always
Mhm.
more you can be doing. And so every season, you have to decide what are you going to focus on in this
Right.
season. And so that will change based on what's going on in your life, what's going
Yeah.
on with your author career and the things that you are trying to accomplish with that. And I don't think that changes whether you have a pen name or not.
Agree.
You may, as we've
Agree.
said all along, spend some time thinking about your pen name ahead of time.
Sure.
But once you're in it, I think it's going to be very much the same as any other author, whether it's your real name or your pen name. So
Yeah, there is never enough time. You're right. And actually, as I've been working on a kind of new offering over here around the holidays, I've been doing research and understanding like a buyer readers and how buyer behaviors are and evolve, and then B on the other side, understanding the getting continuing to understand my own target reader, which many times is authors themselves, and how time is a concern. So there's never enough time. So giving yourself the
right.
grace that you'll always find, no matter if you have a pen name or not, that time is a challenge.
Yeah.
And then pair that with understanding, well, what am I going to do today? What's my priorities? And how do you align that with your goals? Like all of that becomes kind of a focused approach to navigating it. And you're right, no matter what, you just kind of get into a pulse of, I know I have to do these things and this because these things are what helps my authorship grow. And where while having a pseudonym has unique things, it doesn't mean that it has to be harder or not.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that can come up with pen names is that if you're using a pen name to write something different. So, like in my case,
Yeah.
I'm JL Crosswhite for my romantic suspense, and Jennifer Crosswhite for my historical, and Jen Crosswhite for my nonfiction. This was really funny. I was training my daughter to upload all of my stuff and explaining the different pen names. But that also means now I've got 3 websites, three
Yeah.
newsletters, right? So triple the amount of work. I can't possibly give all of them the same amount of attention, and I don't. They each
Yeah.
have a time where they come up and they're at the forefront. And for the authors I know that do this, there are many authors that I'm friends with, and they have different pen names because maybe they write women's fiction and romantic suspense and whatever. And it makes a lot of sense for the algorithm, as we've talked about, to have a different name
Sure.
for the genres, especially when they're genres that are not real close together.
Yep.
But that also means you have to decide how much work you want to put into it.
Yep.
And you can get into that. Some people are very good at scheduling and they have very strong production schedules for their pen
Mhm.
names. And this name's producing this book
Mhm.
this month, and then this one's
Mhm.
doing this one. And, they have a very intricate schedule,
Sure.
and that's fantastic. And then sometimes life can just throw a bomb in the middle of that and blow
Mhm.
it to pieces, and, and there goes your schedule. And you have to be able to kind of roll with those punches sometimes.
You
um,
do.
but I think people that are doing it successfully
Mhm.
have that mentality of this is the plan and I'm going to work on the plan the best way I can. I think that also means analyzing what you're putting out and being honest with it. And is it making money? You might love writing this kind of story, but if it's not making a lot of money, do you want to put as much
Sure.
time and effort into that?
Yeah.
Or, this was the decision I had to come to with my historical romances. I have a history degree. I love history. I was at a local history class last night taking notes. I'm the only person in there with my computer typing away at all the things the lecturer is
Mhm.
saying because I think it's really fascinating. My next series will be a split time because
Yeah.
that's the
That's
only
so
kind of
cool.
historical that's really strong in the market right now. So I had to look at the market and say, look, my romantic suspense makes me a lot more money than my historicals. So therefore, I have to make that decision on where I'm going to put my time and attention and energy, not completely forgetting my historicals, but they can't get as much time and attention. And so I think
Mhm.
those are the kinds of things that authors have to really be honest about. And sometimes it's within the same pen name, but a certain series just doesn't produce as well. And so you have
Absolutely.
to think about that in the nonfiction. Maybe some of your books just don't really hit properly. So then you might not want to put a lot of extra material, extra coursework, extra workbooks, or whatever into
Yep.
that if it didn't quite hit with your market. So that's
Mhm.
part of it's a business decision. It's part of looking at it as a business and deciding how you are going to go forward with that.
Absolutely. I think today that's a good segue to knowing and having clarity on how you want your authorship business to grow, and also realizing that you can do it with using a pen name beautifully or very poorly. And I thought we might identify a couple of case studies of authors and explore a little bit more about them. I was doing a little bit of research on this before our chat, and two come to mind. There might be others for you, but two come to mind. One, because both of which I think people will know and be a little bit different. We've talked about J.K. Rowling before as the author of the Harry Potter series. And I thought we could explore a little bit about her journey leveraging a pen name to write in a different genre. But the other one that I thought was just very timely with the thoughts of Halloween, Jen, is R.L. Stein. Did you ever read Goosebumps?
No, nope,
What's wrong with you? We got to
because
figure.
I don't like scary stories.
Oh, well, it's scary. And I love them, but that author also used a pseudonym, and just in the concept of Halloween next week, I thought that'd be fun. And then if you've got any others, let me know. But let's start with J.K. Rowling for a moment.
Okay.
Um, you did read Harry Potter, right?
I have not read Harry Potter yet. My kids have
Yeah.
watched all of the movies. Well, actually, no, maybe they haven't watched all the movies. So I'm certainly familiar with them, but I
Jen,
have
okay, so
not.
be thinking of your case study since you
Yeah,
don't know my two people.
yeah,
And we have people tuning in today. Please tell me you all have watched read
yeah.
Harry Potter.
You have
Like,
to realize those books were super thick and they came out when I had little kids.
look at
And
Zan. Zan's like, I
so,
didn't read Harry Potter either.
yeah,
Uh-oh.
it's so it yeah,
But
it,
you
there's
know of J.K.
I
Rowling.
totally know, yes, because lots
We
of
know
people
of her.
use her as case studies and things. So I'm quite familiar.
Yeah, so I lived in the genre time for Harry Potter when it was I didn't know about the books until like maybe halfway through the series, and then I was one of the ones that annoyingly had to wait for the next one to come and the next one to come. And I was working at the movie theater at that time, which anytime that you anybody that works at a movie theater tends to be book lovers too, because they're seeing a book come to life on the screen. So that was my first job as a kid, and I would remember sitting in the break rooms and behind the scenes when I probably should be doing real work, reading this book because I couldn't wait to put down the Harry Potter book series. So like we know that we know a bit of her story about how she came to be and all that stuff, and how she wrote when she was in a hard part of her life. And J.K. Rowling was that name, which is a pen name portion of her name, right? It's an abbreviation of her name. And that whole series exploded. What I found interesting, Jen, for me is almost like how I feel with Jodi Picoult and Mitch Albom, like my two other favorite authors out there. Any books that come out by them, I'm like, I'm going to buy them. I'm going to buy them. I mean, don't even ask. I'm getting them for the
Mhm.
holidays or whatever. Same thing with J.K. Rowling because I loved her so much. And yet, when she got out of the Harry Potter series, she was exploring some other genres. She there is a book, I can't remember what it's called. I have it somewhere downstairs in my bookshelf in our little library
Mhm.
that I have of hers, and I was really let down. And this is
Mhm.
true from a reader's perspective on why and pen names are important because I had come to the table with this preconceived notion of what I
Yeah.
was going to get from the Harry Potter series. I think the book was called something around frequency. I don't know. I have to go. I'll look when I stop going down my little spiel. But it was not like I it did not fill me up. I was not happy. It was I did
Yeah.
not it changed how I saw her and how I
Mhm.
saw her writing. Not fair, right or wrong to her. Like that's
Right.
not a fair assessment of her writing. It was probably amazing, but because I came with a preconceived notion, it was a little bit differently. So she ended up and has made some adjustments. And there is, oh, it's called The Casual Vacancy. That's the one, The Casual
Now, did
Vacancy.
she write that one under another name? I feel like she
No,
wrote, okay,
she
same
wrote that.
name. Because I feel like she wrote something else under
She
another
did.
name to
She
try
did.
to
So
say this is going to be different.
she has a Robert Galbraith, I think is
That's
how you
right.
pronounce it. That is her other pseudonym, and it's a series of crime novels.
Okay.
And what was interesting about that process for her is she actually, as many authors who make that shift, don't want people to know that that was her, and yet
Mhm.
it leaked. It came out, and yay, people found that out, and so there's this whole conversation of like authors or readers need to understand need that. I needed that break. If I didn't know that that was her, I would have felt differently towards the novel. But on the flip side, Jen, it was because it was her that I picked it up. So I don't know that I would pick up the crime
Right.
series, but if I knew that she had written it,
Mhm.
maybe I would. I don't know. What do you think about all that?
So I would say John Grisham sort of got himself in that same pickle, right? So John Grisham, you know him for legal thrillers, but he wrote two books that I absolutely love, Painted House and Bleachers, which are much more
Mhm.
literary fiction. They're not legal thrillers at all. And
Yeah.
he got a lot of backlash because people were like, "Where's your legal thriller?" He probably should have used a pen name
Mhm.
whether or not it was a secret or not, right? And this is always the challenge because what you just said, we
Yeah.
want to play
Yeah.
the publishers, or if you're an indie author,
Yeah.
on the popularity that you've already worked for and established with one name. When you created another name, you're either starting from scratch if it's a
Right.
secret, or
Yeah.
if it's an open, not a secret. People still carry those expectations, even though you're saying, I'm doing another thing. That's why I'm using this different name. I do
Mhm.
think John Grisham would have
Mhm.
done himself a service if he had said, these are different, these are literary, and that's why I'm going to write them under, even if he just was,
Yeah,
I
and
don't know
just
what his
said
real name
it.
is, but even if it was like JD Grisham, right? Like,
Right,
just so you knew it was more
right.
literary or whatever, right? So,
Yeah,
so I think he could have done that. I would say someone who's done it well is Nora Roberts, writing
mm,
as JD Robb, right? So Nora Roberts, she's known for her women's fiction.
yep,
You pick up a Nora Roberts book, you know what you're getting, right? It's kind of this big
mhm,
emotional women's fiction book.
right,
And then JD Robb is her more suspense, crime type books. And that fits really, again, you can see, right? It's the initials,
mhm,
Roberts, Rob. Like it's not a secret. Everybody knows. But you
right,
know, when you pick up a JD Robb book, that it's a different kind of book than a Nora Roberts book. And
yeah,
so you have that expectation. Again, I don't really know how much, backlash or whatever she's gotten from people like that. Probably some, because that's just human nature.
right,
But I think you have to do the best you can to signal to your readers the expectation of this book. And I always say this is the biggest challenge isn't giving your readers the kind of book you're giving them. It's making sure they know what kind of book you're giving them, that the expectation and the product are the
yeah,
same. There's not a gap. And so that's where your cover, your back cover copy, all that needs to, set the expectation. This is the kind of book we're getting. And so that's where your pen name also goes into that type of thing. So they understand the kind of book they're getting. It's when they feel like they're getting one book and they get another, that's when they're very
That's
disappointed.
that's the difference.
Yeah,
That's the
the
difference.
expectation. So
Yeah.
you've got to
Yeah.
make sure you're
Yeah.
playing with that expectation correctly.
Yeah,
Sometimes you
and
can't control it, but
I think that you hit the nail on the head with John Grisham, right? Like if you have a unless you're going from something that's like nonfiction to like super steamy romance and there's a reason, if you're doing it because you just want to explore some different genres and you feel called to do that, I think your readers might you would be missing an opportunity, I think, from taking advantage of people who already know your name. But it's the expectation setting. So if he would have been able to like Jay Grisham or whatever, something that changed things a
mhm,
little bit, that would allow him to talk about it.
right.
And same thing with J.K. Rowling. Like if I would have been prepared, maybe
Yes.
instead of doing J.K. Rowling, she actually used her first name or something in a different way.
Mhm,
Would I have been prepared and not expected the magical journey?
right.
But you also run the risk. I mean, R.L. Stein writes a lot of the creepy, crawly, goosebumpy things when I was kid, and it kind of like in the children's horror type kind of genre, but wanted to explore some in nonfiction and used a different pen name. In the nonfiction space, it was successful, but obviously his R.L. Stein imprint or pen name had is what got him famous and stayed in the level
Right.
of fame.
Right.
So, that's how we kind of started today's conversation is where I'm coming back to is just because you want to explore it, what is the best use of your limited time? You still can. Maybe there's a need. Maybe there's a limited need,
Right.
right? Like maybe it's like I keep going back to Joanna Penn, right? Like there might be a limited need in a very niche audience to offer some specific focused support like she does in her nonfiction work, right? Like it's
Mhm.
very focused. And then, but if you have healthy understandings and appreciation for what success for that would look like, then maybe you should do it. But if it's just like, oh, well, today I'm feeling a little spicy and want to do this, da, 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 like just be prepared, I guess. I'd be prepared
Yeah.
with how you're going to tackle that because the more that you got, the harder it is, Jen.
Well, and that's the challenge, right? Because as artists, creative people, we do
Yes.
like to do different things. We like to explore, and you
Yes.
have to decide. Every choice has an opportunity cost to it. So you do
Mhm.
one thing, that means you're saying no to something else. So
Absolutely.
if you're exploring this new thing, that means you're not doing the same thing that you've always done. And you have to decide, does that make sense? Again, back to the business.
Yeah.
And again, business, that's a factor. It may not be the biggest factor for you. It
Right.
might be a smaller factor. It might be the biggest factor. You have to weigh all of that. Joanna Penn's a great example. So she does all of her nonfiction and her podcast and everything as Joanna Penn. I'm going to get to see her at 20 Books in 2 weeks. I'm very excited
Get
about
a
that.
get a selfie with her. I did a long time ago, and I have
Oh,
to
fun.
resurrect it. But she's just such a amazing. She's as kind as you would expect.
Yeah, I'm excited. So then she, of course, writes her fiction as JF Penn.
Yeah.
And they are so well separated. If you go to Amazon and
Mhm.
type in one or the other, you will only get those books for those pen names. You will not get the crossover. And I love her nonfiction and have found it super helpful. I don't know that I will ever read any of her fiction
Exactly, right? We're
because
not your audience for that.
I don't read horror, and I'm
Right.
sure she does a lovely job at it.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I
Oh,
might have to
Zane
pick up
got to
one of
meet her
her.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's cool.
I might have
She
to pick up one of her less intense books or something. But yeah,
yes.
she's speaking on AI. So I'm very excited.
Oh.
I've taken her 2-hour webinar on AI and I'm very excited to.
She's, I what I love about Joanna is she is always on the beginning of trends in the author space and
Yes,
leveraging and
very
testing.
futuristic. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like she's always testing, trying stuff out. She's been in the industry for a bit and, has a lot of knowledge to share. And
Mhm.
so, but she is really, really, really kind. I have a limited edition book that she did for a book baby conference I went to probably 4 or 5 years ago.
I
And
just
you didn't know who she
ordered
was.
her. I've never done anything with Kickstarter. So actually, she did a Kickstarter for Writing from the Shadow.
I
very
saw that new book
yeah.
just came out.
So I ordered, she's doing a limited edition hardback gold foil. It's beautiful with a ribbon. So I ordered that in the Kickstarter package. And I think it was like $50. It was that plus the ebook and the audiobook and some other things. Yeah. So I've read the first chapter or so of it and I'm super fascinated by the whole idea. And so anyways, I'm excited. I've never bought anything through Kickstarter before. That was fun.
What is the
Um,
book about? What's her book? What's
Right.
the
So the shadow side, Carl Jung's work about your shadow side of your personality and integration with that, and how as writers we can draw on that to
That's
create
cool.
characters, which is a lot of what I teach about writing from the wound of your characters and the
That's cool.
depths. So I'm very excited, and that's one of her passions is psychology. She's been working on this book for a long time. She also did a Kickstarter for her pilgrimage book, which again, like she said, that's another. She walked the whole pilgrimage, the Camino in Spain. I actually have a lady at church that just got back from doing that with her daughter.
That's
Um,
cool.
they've done sections of it anyway. So she it was more of a memoir, and I can't remember what name she wrote it under. But anyway, so that was her first Kickstarter. So I think she's done a really good job. So now she's written fiction, nonfiction, and memoir. And she's done a really good job of sort of separating those out and how she treats them each as business assets. She's a big proponent of multiple streams of income. So every pen name she looks at and then, makes business decisions based on those pen names. And I think that's a really great way of treating it and handling it if this is going to be your business, and it is her business. It's what she
So
does.
what is her pen name for her memoir?
That's a good question. I don't know if she wrote it under Joanna Penn or JF Penn. I can't
I'm
remember. I
Googling
know she
it.
said, but yeah, it's pilgrimage. I don't know if it's on. I knew after Kickstarter, I think it was going to be more widely available later, but I don't know if it's up yet.
So that is JF Penn.
It is JF Penn. Okay.
Yeah. And is her fiction that too?
Yes, that's her fiction name is JF Penn. So
So
interesting.
so she's selected two pen names. One for the business is Joanna Penn.
Mm.
And then for the others that are not business directed, she's doing the JF Penn.
And actually, funnily enough, she and her mom co-wrote some sweet romances a while back as Penny Appleton or something like that.
That's
And
cool.
which is really sweet. Her mom wanted to write them, and so anyways, they worked together. And they did just a short run of that. And so she was smart in creating a pen name that was not associated with her other things, because clearly very, very different than what she normally writes.
Yeah, so many cool things. So many cool things as we wrap up our discussion on pen names. Who'd have thought, Jen, we'd have 4 weeks of great stuff to talk about when it comes to pseudonyms?
It's a lot to think about.
Go us.
Definitely think through it ahead of time. That's the
Yeah.
best advice I can give. Think through it
Yeah.
ahead.
I'll tell you, in regards to books that we're reading, I just got 2 books. One's coming today. I think. Yeah, I think it's coming today. The other I just got yesterday or the day before with a book club that I was invited to be a part of. So
Nice.
I've started to, and I don't have any like quotes or anything good, but I will for the group. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Have you read it?
Yes, no, but it's on my list of things to read. Yeah,
Yeah, I will
very good
tell
thing.
you. I opened it. And this is just, it's like when I did theater in high school and I would go to a movie and I would be let down because I know too much about the acting world.
Mhm.
I feel the same way sometimes about reading. And I opened up the book and the cover's really beautiful. It's a really simplistic cover. And I opened it and I just looked at my husband and he goes, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't like the spacing and the margins." And he goes, "Man, it's a bummer when you know too much, isn't it?" I'm like,
This
"Yeah."
is the curse of my life, and this is why I've been listening to audiobooks in the evening, just
Yeah.
kind of light, fluffy
Ditto.
stuff. And actually, I was listening to one, and I just was like, I don't like how they handled that. I wish they would have done that differently. That was not. And
Yep.
it's the curse of what we do, and it does take. in some ways take the enjoyment out of something that I loved very much.
It
And
does.
so part of it is I just don't read as much as I used to because I read all day
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely.
exhausted. So, and I hear this from other people too, that that's a lot of why they like audiobooks
Mhm.
because it's less eye strain.
Yeah,
And yeah, so yeah, and Zan says I
yeah,
read as a writer now. It's true, and
yeah.
you do. You're constantly analyzing things, and it's really
Yeah,
hard to turn that part of your brain off.
you do.
Um,
I will try to overlook it because I hear this book is really good. The other one that's in the queue that's coming is The Body Keeps the Score. Have you heard
I've
of
read
that?
that one.
Have you
Yes,
read that one?
I have. I've read it. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about digging into that one,
it's very
because it
good.
talks about, our bodies,
It's a
holding on to
very thick
trauma.
book. It took me. I borrowed it from the library, and I had to check it out like 2 or 3 times to get through the
Well, it's a
whole.
good thing. Maybe I'll read it over Christmas. I am reading, Jen. So I know I texted you the other day about audiobooks because I'm getting into them, but I'm reading a audiobook that church gave, that had for free. And so I took it and have been enjoying it with my family. I think I would feel differently if I had invested in it because, as someone who's produced an audiobook, like I now hear that stuff, right? So I'm like,
Mhm,
why was
mhm.
that not edited? I can hear your paper swipe. Like, it's annoying. There's things that should be done in your audio. Dude, let you down. Plus, sometimes we as authors should not be the voice of our audiobooks. That's a story
Right.
for today. But this, I'm trying really hard to get to listen to the story itself because the story itself is a really beautiful one. It's called Flight to Heaven, and it's about a pilot who was in a plane crash
Mhm,
and in a coma for 3 days. And during that 3 days, he went to heaven.
mhm,
And it took him a long time to have that memory come back
mhm.
of what that was like. But he is sharing. I'm not to the chapter yet where, because like I want to know all about heaven. Like, tell me all about it, right? I'm not there yet, but talking about the feelings of things in his own life, like how he immensely loved people through a different lens when he came
Mhm.
back. Just really interesting things. And even about him navigating and reminding us that even though he had a chance to see something that we all dream of, he still is a person that is broken and makes mistakes and is imperfect and is frustrated with that process. So my kids and I have been listening to it, and it has been a really cool thing to have in the car.
Yeah,
So I'm learning that, and I've known this, but like with my kids at impressionable ages, how important it is for us to realize that that they're listening,
right.
and we have the chance to impart in them this power of being a avid reader in multiple ways, but also someone that's consuming really great stuff. So that's been a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
That's the nice thing about now audiobooks, right? Is that time in the car,
Yeah.
you can have everybody listening. And now that you can have them on your phone, you don't
Oh,
have to like back in the day when it was a CD or whatever.
that's what I
And
have right now. It's like,
yeah,
let's check it out
you're
and put
listening,
it
and then
in.
so you can only really listen to it in the car. And
Yeah.
so you're like, no, yeah. Sometimes you'll sit in the driveway waiting to get
Right. I'm like, get to the end. Get to the
right.
end.
Yeah. So yeah, I like the ones you can carry around with you on your phones, and you can
Yeah.
just
Go walking,
pick
cut
it
the
up wherever.
grass, all the things
Yeah.
you can still listen. Well, next week we'll pivot to a healthy discussion in November around holiday marketing.
Mhm.
That is very timely,
Yes.
and I'm pumped about that. Also, for those listening today or later, shameless plug, I hope you don't mind, Jen. We have here at the Empower PR Group a holiday book marketing collective where we are carrying some of the heavy weight of holiday marketing by getting some tools and resources for you. It is available now if you go to empowerprgroup.com/holiday marketing, and it will be a beautiful complement to our discussion over the next several weeks. So join in. And Jen, anything else to add?
I can't think of anything, which is weird,
It
but
is. It's a
I
good thing.
know.
We
I
covered it
know.
all. Well, send
We
us off.
did.
Send us off.
I will send us off. Authors, your words have power, you have power, and your message has power. So we invite you each week to join us as we take that to the page and beyond as we discuss all things we're writing and marketing. Might need another cup of coffee.
Yeah. And caffeine. We are a fan of small doses and large doses of caffeine.
That's
We will
right.
see y'all next time. Take
Have a good
care.
week. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.